Michael Adamo is currently on a tournament heater, having won his third bracelet after knocking Justin Bonomo out of the 50k high roller. The final hand saw Adamo 3-bet with King-Jack suited from the big blind, only to face a 4-bet jam from Bonomo. After some thought, Adamo decided to call it off, and his King-Jack suited held up against Bonomo's 10-9 offsuit. Why did Bonomo decide to risk it all with 10-9? And was Adamo's decision to call it off with King-High correct? The first thing to note here is the structure of the tournament. With the presence of the big blind ante, as well as both players only being 70 blinds effective, the hand plays much closer to a 50 big blind cash game with no ante. As such, King-Jack suited is a very standard call in theory, and we make about 2 big blinds on average every time we call it off. Even a hand like Jack-10 suited is worth about 1.5 blinds as a call, assuming button is jamming the correct range. Calling off with Jack-High might seem a little loosey-goosey, but we actually have the right odds to do so, because button is never jamming with aces and kings at this stack depth. Instead, he is jamming lots of small and mid pocket pairs, most of which are flipping with Jack-10 suited. Ace-King and Ace-Queen also make up a big part of button's jamming range, and Jack-10 suited has 2 life cards against them, plus the chance of making a flush. And while Adamo's hand, King-Jack suited, is dominated by Ace-King, it also has better equity against 10s and jacks, which makes it an even better call than Jack-10 suited. So Adamo's call turns out to be GTO. What about Bonomo's jam? Unsurprisingly, jamming with 10-9 offsuit isn't really a thing. In fact, out of all 3 options, jamming is the worst one, followed by folding, and then calling. In a situation like this where all the money goes in pre-flop, raw equity is everything. If you look at the hands that small blind likes to jam, most of them either have a pair or some kind of high card value. Without either one of these, we would be dominated way too often when called, as is the case with 10-9. I think it is safe to say that a player of Bonomo's caliber, who has 3 bracelets and more than 50 million in live earnings, understands this. So why did he ship it with 10-high anyway? Well, just because a play is bad in theory, doesn't mean that it's bad in practice. There is a common misunderstanding that high stakes poker is all about playing GTO. This hand is the perfect example of why it isn't true. GTO by nature is bad at punishing frequency mistakes. For example, against Bonomo's open, Adamo is supposed to 3-bet King-Jack offsuit 21% of the time. Let's assume for a moment that Adamo, a highly aggressive player, is overdoing it and 3-betting 80% of the time instead. Would a GTO strategy be able to punish this mistake? No. The fact that King-Jack offsuit is mixing 3-bet and call implies that both options have the same EV. No matter what Adamo does with King-Jack off, he will not lose EV against a GTO opponent as long as he doesn't fold, of course. And since poker is a zero-sum game, it also means that a GTO strategy will not gain any EV from Adamo's mistake of 3-betting King-Jack offsuit too often. But there is a way to punish this mistake, and that is to widen our 4-betting range. Unlike its suited counterpart, King-Jack offsuit does not have enough equity to call off against a 4-bet jam. So as Adamo starts to 3-bet King-Jack offsuit and other similar hands more often, he also ends up folding more and more against a 4-bet. And the most direct way to exploit this would be to add more bluffs into our 4-bet range. This is likely what Bonomo was doing. Even though 10-9 offsuit looks like an unappealing hand to play for stacks with, the fact is that even against a GTO strategy, it is only losing half a big blind as a jam. And this can quickly become plus EV if Adamo is indeed going out of line with his 3-bet bluffs, a real possibility given his aggressive style. In a way, these high-stakes tournaments are like boxing matches. Every punch you throw opens yourself up to a potential counter-punch, but if you pick your spots carefully, you can minimize the risk of that happening. And playing pure GTO would be the equivalent of trying to block all of your opponent's punches without throwing any of your own. It's too easy to play against, and you'll probably get worn down by your opponent anyway. The best players treat GTO as a baseline and are not afraid to throw punches when they deem it appropriate. Adamo and Bonomo are both players who fall into this category, so it's really no surprise that they have found so much success in these high roller tournaments. Let me know what you think of Bonomo's gem in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.